Well, good morning. Good morning, all. I can see we're getting a slow-ish start in the morning on Wednesday. It always ends up that way with day three of things. But it's going to be a really enriching day this morning and this afternoon. We know that on Monday we talked about the clean energy ecosystem that's emerging, that the fastest way to get us to net zero is not necessarily the most linear path with the most carbon-free energy sources exclusively, but it is the path that nature defines and prefers, which is that path of diversity and complexity, from which we have so much more opportunity and the emergence of so many new qualities along the way that help us to thrive. So we learned about the various energy sources and how they interrelate with one another. We learned some of the high payback steps that can be taken, eliminating methane emissions as much as possible, the accelerator of global warming that is the easiest fruit to pick. We learned the power of a price on carbon to drive carbon down across the board, no matter what our energy choices are. And we learned that solar and wind depend on natural gas, they depend on batteries, batteries depend on oil and gas depends on the United States leading, so that China doesn't dominate, so that Russia doesn't dominate, so that we have access to critical minerals, so that we can build our technology products and our batteries, so that we have jobs and prosperity, and we have some leverage in the world for an economy that's much cleaner than the other economies that would love to take our place if they could. We learned yesterday about a circular economy, and that a circular economy is more than just an economy where you take the line and you wrap it back around and you continue to recycle materials. A circular economy is an economy that moves us past the notion that we dominate nature, that we control nature, that we are the ones to make all the decisions in this linear path from extraction to disposal, and that we're part of a system. And our economy becomes more like a living system, a complex living system that creates value along the way. Value that is not always predictable, value that is emergent, value that lies latent in the potentials of nature that we're not aware of. And we become aware that we are a part of this natural process, and that we ourselves are the results of a creative process, and we are not consumers alone, but we are also creators in this process. And the creation that we come forth with is not always evident to us ahead of time. In fact, it never is. We don't know what we can create until it becomes created. And it becomes created when we interact with each other, with different kinds of people, with different kinds of qualities. And those people trigger in us the potentials that we have lying latent in us. And that offers some satisfaction and some fulfillment that perhaps we don't have if we feel that we are alone on the planet to do whatever it is that we're good at and then come to the end. And so we began to feel, I think, the cultural shift that happens as we move from linearity to circularity, as we take the natural step that all ecosystems do, that all living systems do, as they repeat these patterns of birth and growth and variation and transformation over and over again. That we didn't make a mistake in the industrial era as we consumed voraciously any more than the caterpillar made a mistake by consuming that leaf, but that we did what we were motivated to do. And as we got to the end of that path, we began to get feedback from the system that we can't continue that voracious appetite anymore, that it's time for us to mature, to become adults, to become diversified, and to enter a period that can be very long and very sustainable for a very extended period of time. And that's the choice that we're making as a species right now. Are we going to lop it off? Are we going to decide this is the end? Plenty of species do. Or are we going to enter into that next phase, past growth to variation, and become a full human ecosystem? That all sounds cool, but how do we get there? We're moving from a system, again, of linear thought where we command and control the ends. And in order to block the command and control of the destruction of the planet, we created systems in the 60s and 70s and 80s of blocking that in a command and control fashion. And so we have a war. We have a war on climate, like we have a war on drugs, like we have a war on hunger, like we have a war on everything. And the problem with wars is they continue on because the war becomes more profitable than solving the problem does to the people who are selling the armaments of that war. And in this war, the climate war, the folks selling the armaments are the political and media industries that thrive by keeping us at war. So how do we now move to a system of pro-activism where we create this new culture that can come from the one that we are now graduating from? And this morning, we have a group of folks who are experts in pro-activism. It doesn't mean that they're not ever engaged in reactivism, in battles, but they are also involved in creating possibilities and bringing new alliances together. And so I want to welcome Theo Wilson, who is a practitioner of this, whether he realized it or not, has been a practitioner of this in his life, and he is going to introduce our panel of experts who will have a little conversation about pro-activism and what we can do now to grow a new economy and actually maybe return to optimism as a driving force in our work. So welcome, Theo.